Hello, I'm Deborah, and I'm a leader of a Sisterhood of the Rose group in the United States. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Cobra about our upcoming Age of Aquarius activation meditation taking place at 6:11 a.m. GMT on January 11th or 12th, depending on your time zone. The Sisterhood of the Rose supports this meditation very much, and we have many questions and things to discuss today to bring clarity and to emphasize the importance of as many people as possible doing this meditation. So let's get started. Welcome, Cobra, and thank you for doing this interview.
I think it's important to do this, and I hope everybody will join us because we have a real chance to create a breakthrough.
Absolutely. Yes, there's so many people excited. So you're calling this meditation the Age of Aquarius activation with the intent to trigger the process that will lead us into the Age of Aquarius. But aren't we already in the Age of Aquarius? And what exactly is the Age of Aquarius? Is it the same as the Golden Age?
Uh, Coming from the Piscean age into the Age of Aquarius is a process which takes many centuries. And right now we are at the peak of that transition. And this is the purpose of this meditation, to trigger that, I would say, phase transition, to this phase shift into the new age. And this golden age, or the Age of Aquarius, is something that many visionaries have seen throughout the centuries about the new age that will come, that will radically transform society on the surface of this planet, and will actually begin a whole new cycle of evolution. And this is what many have been expecting, and it did not happen, and still did not happen. But right now we are at the moment where real change is increasingly becoming possible.
Oh, wonderful. So to help people visualize, what kind of world will we be triggering with our meditation? Like, what would a typical day in the Age of Aquarius look like?
There are many differences between what the society looks now and how the society will look after the beginning of the Age of Aquarius. One of the major differences will be the vibrational frequency of the society, which will be full of real love and real support and mutual understanding between people, which is not present now. The other difference will be the awareness of the connection with your own higher self, with your own soul. And the third difference will be the widespread understanding that this whole universe is a living being with many different races inhabiting many solar systems, and there will be active contact between the Earth civilization and other star races. This will be a common occurrence. So we will be joining galactic society, and every day will be completely different from what we're experiencing now. There will be no more need to struggle for survival, to do regular jobs in a way that you are experiencing now. There will be a completely new paradigm where you will be living each day according to your inner guidance and whatever is the highest purpose for every day, which might be completely different from one day to another.
Wow. So is there a connection to the Age of Aquarius in Atlantis? I mean, did people do mass meditations in Atlantis? And if they did it help change the course of events?
Yes, actually, Atlantis has three phases. The first phase of Atlantis, the first Atlantis was in the Pleiades. The second Atlantis was the one that Plato was talking about in the Atlantic Ocean. And the third one is the new Atlantis we are arriving at. And in the second Atlantis, which was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there were periods where life was quite similar to what we will be experiencing in the Golden Age. And there were many people doing mass meditations. There was open contact with other star races. And this is something that will return.
Okay, well, we're definitely looking forward to that. So with this meditation, what effects would the average person experience if we achieve critical mass? And would they happen right away or with time?
What will happen if you reach the critical mass is that we will shift the timelines. And timelines are like rivers. So now the river of planetary events is running into a certain direction. And if you reach the critical mass, we will redirect that river. So first, the effects will be small and barely noticeable, but with time, this river, the change of direction will be quite significant and can actually determine how things will develop. We can, for example, in the current timeline, there is a war between Iran and the United States, and in the new timeline, that war doesn't happen. This is just one example how things can change. And definitely at some point, there will be drastic changes in daily life of every individual on the surface of the planet if we manage to shift the timeline into a better one.
Wow. Well, that itself is motivation to do the meditation. And I have to ask, I mean, what can we expect to happen if we don't achieve critical mass for this meditation?
If we don't achieve the critical mass, there will be no breakthrough, but still we will have significant impact on world events, because for sure many people will join the meditation. But if we don't reach the critical mass, we will not have that fundamental shift of timelines. We will not have that massive improvement that we're hoping for.
So it would have an effect, but it would just slow things down a little bit more than if we achieve critical mass.
If we achieve critical mass, we can cut the waiting time quite significantly. If we don't reach the critical mass, we will just cut it very, very, very slightly.
I understand. Yes. Okay. So now a few specifics about some of the things that you've posted about this meditation on your blog. You've said that meditation, if it is done in the same moment with a large mass of people, changes mass consciousness. Everything that's happening today is a sum of vectors of decisions of people on the planet. 7.7 billion people making daily decisions. If we put a coherent signal for one moment in that whole lump of free will vectors, we can change what happens. Can you explain a little bit more how this process works?
Okay, we have, as I said, more than 7 billion people on the planet, and most of them are just blindly following the major vectors, which are the mass media, which are their financial situation. But there is a small number of people that are using their free will, and scientifically it's proven that there is a certain number of people that needs to be reached to influence the planetary situation, and that is this number is the square root of 2 times the planetary population, which is right now around 120,000 people. But because not everybody is doing the meditation 100% efficiently, we're using this symbolic number of 144,000. So if that number of people meditates at the same time in space and time, it creates a coherent signal. It means a signal which is like a laser beam. And when you have a laser beam signal in the planetary consciousness field, you direct, you dictate, you drive the river of free will on the planet. You put it and shift it into a certain direction. And if we are visualizing the golden age, this is where we are shifting that river. And it is important to understand that we need to do this at exactly the same moment. If we want to have a physical change, physical plane is dictated with the laws of space and time. And if we want physical change, we need to do it at exactly the same moment. This is why timing of this meditation is so critically important. And it's very important that everybody does this at the same moment throughout the planet. If you do it 2 hours later, you will not add to the critical mass.
I'm glad you made that point, because there's actually a science behind this that we're working with. As you said, the actual physical. So do these free will vectors interact with the plasma fields from the solar system? I mean, is that what creates the resonance that changes the course of events?
What is happening is basically that the plasma fields from the solar system influence the masses, because masses are not using their free will and they're just responding to tendencies. And I have explained in detail what are the astrological configurations at that time. So people react to that. But if we use our free will to put a laser-like signal in that plasma interference pattern, we can dictate the outcome. We can actually shape the outcome towards the golden age.
Mm-hmm. So specifically, as it relates to what's going on the planet, how can this affect the financial markets or the exposure of the child abuse networks?
What will happen is if we put that signal into the grid at the moment where the plasma interference pattern is triggering the financial system, this is the moment where we can influence the financial system at the greatest. We can actually start revealing all the irregularities in the system. They can become part of the public common knowledge. And when this becomes part of the common public knowledge, the system needs to change. And if we determine that we want to change it into a fair financial system, this is where it will have to go according to the laws of physics.
Okay, okay. I would like to address this child abuse networks that you mentioned too. So with these coming disclosures and others, you mentioned in a recent interview that people would become, and you used the words very, very, very angry. What can we do? Obviously, children are very much in the heart of the Sisterhood of the Rose. What can we do, all of us, to help soften and stabilize this situation or any other chaos that may occur? Can you explain how the energy of the goddess can help with this?
Energy of the goddess is the energy that brings balance. It brings harmony. It brings healing. And if as many people as possible channel that energy and transmit it into the planetary energy grid, it will begin to calm down the surface population. And this is exactly what is needed for us to survive this transition intact and without too much violence.
Mm-hmm.
Because this anger, the violence that is now suppressed, will be released. And it is actually a suppressed masculine principle, which can only be healed by the presence of awakened feminine principle. So the energy of the goddess is the energy that can calm down people, that they will not start killing people randomly on the streets, but they will rather take informed, enlightened action.
Good. Okay. And I'd like to speak a little later too more about some of the divine feminine as well. But let's continue a little bit where we were. How will exposing the child abuse networks force the Black nobility families to give up control?
It will not force them to give up control. This is just the first phase. So when there is enough awareness among the surface population about the existence of child abuse and the extent of child abuse, it will be harder and harder for those people to hide behind their masks. It is a matter of exposure. And when exposure reaches a critical mass, when there is enough exposure in the consciousness field of humanity, then the light forces can take physical action and arrest those people.
So you're suggesting people to help expose some of this truth.
All of this truth.
Right, right. There's been recent issues with a lot of the social media, shutting down accounts, and there's been something on Twitter about you can be subpoenaed for certain information. Do you feel it's safe for us to really speak our truth or the truth on some of those social media platforms?
What you need to understand is that we are in a war, and in a war, nothing is safe. It's a matter of making choices, personal choices. I will not force anybody to do anything against their will, but I would say that those people need to be exposed. It's time.
Yes, yes, and of course, you've given us protection protocols to use as well.
Yes, yes.
Should be used daily. So let's get back to the timing of this meditation, because it's so important, and you keep bringing up how important it is. I mean, why do we work with these astrological configurations? I mean, what do they do? Do they open a doorway for the light forces to help us?
Those astrological configurations, as I said, they are plasma interference patterns throughout the solar system. And when there is a very powerful configuration, whatever happens at that moment is magnified many times. So if we have a laser-like signal, right at that moment, it becomes magnified many times. And this particular configuration is very favorable towards exposure. So this is Saturn-Pluto conjunction actually can expose a lot. it can expose more than most of the other configurations. And we have a very explosive mix of planets joining up together and important cycles ending and new cycles beginning. So we are at the exact insertion point where this new age can begin to happen.
Right. I mean, I'm going to quote something, what you said in your blog. You said, first, there will be a penumbral lunar eclipse on January 10th, creating a very tense and rigid energy pattern. Then on January 11th, both Uranus and Eris will turn direct. This will release a lot of previously suppressed planetary Kundalini energy. January 11th is a very powerful timeline day, and in the last few decades, there were 4 powerful events that took place on January 11th that changed the destiny of this planet. 2 of those I can mention, and they are the opening of the doorway of the 1111 on January 11th, 1992, and the Archon invasion of January 11th, 1996. Then on January 12th, we will have an extremely powerful Saturn-Pluto conjunction that will crack the global financial system open, so which you just mentioned. So you're saying, because, with all of this going on that weekend, why is it that this meditation is taking place? For most of us, a lot of us here in the USA, it's on the night of the 11th. So why that particular time, out of all the aspects that are happening over the weekend, why was that time selected?
The light forces have selected that particular time to have the maximum number of people meditating globally. They are not just looking at the United States, they are taking into account, especially people in Asia. There are very strong meditation groups in China, in other countries in Asia, and throughout the planet. And this particular time is expected to have the most effect on the energy grid situation and the maximum number of people meditating.
Okay. Does it have to do with the 1 or the 11 or the 1111, or I mean here in the US that's what we talk about. Wow, it's a 111 my time or 1111 my time, or does any of that energy come into play?
Yes, also.
Okay, cool. You mentioned too in this report that the lunar eclipse on the 10th would create a very tense and rigid energy pattern. How will this affect us, and do we need to do anything to prepare or protect ourselves that day?
Just be aware that there will be strong energies triggered. There might be a lot of entities flying around the astral plane. There might be a lot of pressure. There might be shocking news in the media, anything of that nature. Just stay calm and centered and focused.
Okay, thank you. You also mentioned that you mentioned a synodic cycle, and you said there would be 13 of them starting in 2020. So first of all, what is a synodic cycle, and what is the significance of 13 of them?
Synodic cycle is a cycle where 2 planets actually meet if you look from the center of the sun. So if you would be right now at the sun and you would look at the planets, when 2 planets conjunct or they come together, when they meet, this is called a synod. And when planets move in their orbits around the solar system, there is a certain period between the first and second meeting of the same planets, and this is called the synodic cycle. And in this year, we have 13 of them. I would say 13 more significant ones, where in average year you just have 1 or 2. So this just stresses the importance of this year. And what is also interesting is that I would say 4 or 5 of those cycles are happening on that weekend, between the 10th and 13th.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that. So that's pretty powerful. So, okay. You said that gold was taken to the USA in 1996 and used to finance underground bases to prepare for the Draco invasion in 1996. That was in one of your posts. Is there a connection between the invasion on January 11th, 1996 and what will happen on this January 11th meditation and the Age of Aquarius activation?
Okay, I never said that the gold was taken in 1996 to the United States. The gold was taken after World War II to the United States, and then it was put into the uh, it was underwriting the trading programs, which were secret, and this money generated through those trading programs went to finance the building of underground military bases, which were built extensively since 1946, 1947. And this network of underground bases was completed in 1995, and the Draco invasion actually was triggered on the January 11th, 1996. Now we are here 24 years later, when we are actively reversing that trend. We are ending that invasion.
Mm-hmm. And we're doing that through this meditation or just with all of the incoming light that's coming in?
We have been working, I would say the light forces have been working actively since 1996 to counteract that invasion. And now we are reaching a certain point where the efforts of the light forces will become visible. And we are marking this with our meditation, with our activation.
Okay. Okay. Are you yet able to say what the other two January 11th events were that changed the destiny of this planet?
No.
Okay. Had to ask. You also mentioned that the trading week between January 13th and 17th is the time of greatest probability that the situation in the financial markets will burst into a full crisis. The astrological chart of the opening of the New York Stock Exchange on Monday, January 13th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time shows a powerful exact quadruple Sun, Saturn, Pluto series in conjunction that have particular aspects with the United States, just like the one last year that activated certain vortexes. So can you say more about this and how we can expect mass consciousness in the United States to be affected? I mean, why the focus on the New York Stock Exchange?
New York is a financial center of planetary importance. We have JP Morgan headquarters there, New York Stock Exchange is there, New York Fed is there. So these are three major institutions that dictate how this worldwide financial crisis will unravel. And it is interesting to know that the opening moment of the New York Stock Exchange happens exactly where at the peak astrological influence of that quadruple conjunction. So it will be a very powerful moment. And it is not possible to say what will happen. We are speaking about probabilities. We cannot see the future, but we can see the trends, we can see the cycles, and that week will be very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it. Absolutely. Cobra, is this meditation energetically related to the silver trigger meditation we did on 11/11 of last year? If so, how? I mean, is there a connection through the 1 and the 11 energies of these 2 days?
Actually, the meditation on the 11th of November was preparation for this one. It was a plan of the light forces to do them one after the other. And what is interesting to note is that the meditation on the 11th of November had Sun-Mercury conjunction, actually a Sun-Mercury transit. And Mercury is returning back to the Sun on the January 11th this year. So these 2 months, Mercury did a certain loop, which brought him back to the Sun, which is again putting a spotlight on the global financial system again.
Right. So it did a whole loop. That's interesting. What happened on this planet the last time we had such a strong astrological configuration? Back at the Grand Cross eclipse on August 11th, 1999.
On the August 11th, 1999, a huge interdimensional portal opened, which actually reversed the trend of the Draco invasion. Between 1996 and 1999, the dark forces were just attacking the planet, just coming here, gaining power. And this powerful Stargate reversed the trend. So since then, they are losing power. Mm-hmm. And this was visible 2 years later. And the 9/11, which they engineered, was not a sign of strength. It was a sign of their weakness and desperation. Because always when they do something so visible, so easily noticeable, it means that they're desperate.
Mm-hmm.
They understood that at some point people will begin to investigate and everything will come out. So they have no option. It means that they started to lose the war, the Galactic War in 1999.
So is our Age of Aquarius meditation related energetically to that astrological event in 1999?
Yes, we are beginning to write the last chapter of this galactic saga.
Okay. The very last chapter?
The last one.
All right, good. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the Fed financial reset. People seem to be confused about this because in the past, you've said that the financial reset would only happen at the time of the event, and yet now there's talk of that happening prior to the event. So can you update us on what's going on with that?
What is happening is the life forces are favoring a gradual dismantling of the old financial system because they realize that abrupt crash would create too many problems, primarily because people are not ready. People have not done their homework, and there is not enough consciousness on the surface of the planet. The support grid of light workers is far too weak to sustain the energies of the abrupt financial crash. So what will happen will be a gradual dismantling of the old system, which will be energetically triggered with this Age of Aquarius activation. And this dismantling will take a certain amount of time, which will culminate in the final reset.
Okay. You recently asked us to do a meditation every 4 hours to stabilize the financial system, especially Deutsche Bank, until we did the Age of Aquarius meditation. And you also said that the collapse of the Deutsche Bank is predicted to happen around January 15th. So what is the particular reason why it was important to delay this collapse of Deutsche Bank at this time? Is that so that there would not be this chaotic crash that you just talked about?
Okay, a few things here. The first one is there is a faction of the cabal that wanted to hard crash the system and then introduce electronic money with total control. And this is what this meditation was preventing. Their plan was to implement this on the 1st of January this year. And as you can see, this did not happen. Their plan failed, which is good. And this was the main reason why this meditation was taking place, and is still necessary for a few days. It is not just about Deutsche Bank, it's also about the whole financial system. And I am not saying the Deutsche Bank will collapse on January 15. This is just, I would say, the peak of the cycle. And what exactly will happen, nobody knows.
Right. Okay. Well, a lot of it depends on what takes place that weekend in terms of our collective consciousness.
Exactly.
Is Fulford accurate when he says the USA needs to be bankrupted in order for us to get rid of the debt-based economy?
Yeah, I would say the US government and this whole debt bubble needs to be collapsed. This is part of the financial reset, not just in the United States, but worldwide. All this will be collapsed. But as I said before, this collapse will be gradual. It will be more of a dismantling, not a sudden shock, because a sudden shock, the surface population would not be able to absorb it. People would experience hardships that are not necessary.
Right. We don't need any more of that on the planet. So it would be more of a gentle, softer, slower.
I wouldn't say gentle, but I would say not brutal as it would be the hard crash.
Okay. Let me ask you, how is it going with the struggle between the two black nobility factions over whether they will have a debt-based or social credit-based financial system? And what would it take for them to actually give up control so that we finally have a fair financial system?
As I said before, the faction that wants to have electronic, online, I would say social score banking system has lost quite much power over the new year. There was a lot of infighting going on, a lot of so-called negotiations, and now the faction which is still promoting the debt slavery financial system, the current that we have now, is gaining power. But the light forces are always also gaining power, and we will get the upper hand, and the system will be crashed on our terms, not theirs.
Okay, good. Who or what are backing these black nobility families energetically?
Yeah, there is the Chimera group on the plasma plane. There are many reptilian and Draco entities on the plasma plane, etheric plane, and they are working in unison. I would say top occultists in the black nobility families have direct contact with those entities, are invoking them in their rituals, and are channeling them, and they will be actually doing also rituals during that weekend. They want to do their own thing. Yes.
Right, which is one of the reasons, one of the very important reasons that, the light workers need to do their own rituals, so to speak, to counteract a lot of that.
We will bring the light in. We don't need to fight with them. We will just bring the light, and the light will do whatever needs to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and, it's obviously putting our focused attention on the Age of Aquarius meditation at the time that we're doing that, but and also throughout the entire weekend. I would say that it would be very important to maybe beef up your meditation over those several days. So let me get back to the financial situation just a little bit more. What is China preparing for with its gold?
Yeah, China and Russia also, they are collecting gold because after the reset, gold will partially underwrite the new financial system. Gold will back partially the new financial system, and China and Russia and also some other countries are actively preparing for that.
Okay. And I know we touched upon this a little bit more, but I think I'd really like to drive this point in so that people can understand the importance of this January 11th, 12th meditation. Can you share with us what a hard crash or financial reset that the dark forces will try when they're using this astrological configuration that weekend to bring about? Like, what would a hard crash look like?
Okay, first I need to say that the hard crash scenario that dark forces are planning is extremely unlikely to happen.
Okay.
But if it would happen, it would be the banks would close immediately. The distribution chain would be disturbed. People would start losing access to food, electricity. There would be riots. There would be mass chaos. And then, as you probably know, the dark ones would try to implement martial law and would use this as an excuse to completely tighten the control over the surface population. I think I don't need to get further into that.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let's not put any attention or energy toward that option or possibility. So, as you said, it's very unlikely that that would happen. I have to ask this because, some people are worried about things like that. Like, are there indicators that things might go badly as they did in Germany in the 30s when the banks collapsed and inflation got so out of control that a loaf of bread cost $100 and people turned to the Nazis to stabilize the country? I mean, is there a possibility that this could happen in the US or Germany in 2020? Or, as you just said, it's quite unlikely?
Okay, hard crash is not just hyperinflation. Hard crash is when the banks close, when the shops close, when the distribution chain gets disturbed. We also have a meltdown option, which is like a hyperinflation, problems with employment, banks working sporadically, a huge financial crisis worldwide, something that was experienced in the 1930s, and that is possible for a certain period of time.
Okay. Okay. With especially, with what's happening recently with, the whole war thing, people are talking about World War III and all of that. Are the dark forces planning to crash the global economy and then pull us out of it with a global war economy and reduction of the population the way they did in World War II?
This is the scenario I was describing just before.
Okay. Okay. So, so basically no. So, all right.
I mean, they have a plan, but this plan has been counteracted so many times already, and it's extremely unlikely that they will be able to pull this through.
Okay. Can you offer a little more insight into what kind of financial reset the light forces are orchestrating? You said it was going to be softer. What would how would the everyday person experience that?
You mean the light forces version of the financial reset?
Yes.
Okay, there will be few things. There will be few things happening. The first one will be exposure of the financial machinations of all the wrongdoings through the mass media, big scandals, and there will be meltdowns of the larger banks, which includes Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan. Many larger banks would have to go bankrupt, but it would be a controlled situation. And the huge restructuring of the rules of the financial system. This is a process that can take quite some time, but it will be quite intense and quite dramatic, and it is not expected that this will always go smoothly. There will be many shocks that are not avoidable. It's not possible to completely make this a smooth transition. But what we're trying to prevent are the hardest scenarios.
Right, absolutely. Will there be any type of a jubilee?
At the moment of the reset, yes.
Okay. So what can we do? What things specifically can we visualize happening in the financial system so that we can help to have this smooth financial reset?
You can visualize a smooth transition. You can visualize this system being transformed into a new system that is fair to everybody. That's the basic goal.
Okay. Because that will help during the meditation in terms of what we want to visualize. You've said a lot before about how to prepare physically for the reset by stocking up on 2 weeks worth of supplies. But how can we best prepare ourselves spiritually for the reset? How can we help mainstream folks who are likely to be in a state of shock, or as well as being caught without supplies?
The first thing that is the most important is to get in contact with your inner guidance. And you can get in contact with your inner guidance by practicing following inner guidance and not neglecting inner guidance. And inner guidance will sometimes guide you through situations in a way that are not comfortable for your belief systems or for belief systems of those around you. So it's a matter of practice. And the other thing that is also quite important is not to get involved in dramas of other people. Because when you begin to raise vibrationally above the average, you'll become a magnet for people's drama. And the key here is do not engage. People will get crazy because those new energies are quite strong and people will not be able to handle them. So it's for you to stay in your own center and not get involved into all that craziness happening around you.
And I know you speak a lot about connecting with your inner guidance, but as I think we all can relate to, it can be challenging sometimes, especially with the interference that we're getting with, some of these, scalar weapons and things like that. Do you have any suggestions on, especially right now with the energies as chaotic as they are, and a lot of light workers actually, being attacked? Do you have any advice for us on how to manage that, as well as how to really access that inner guidance?
The most simple practical way will be to spend some time each day in nature. I would say half an hour, 1 hour each day in nature would help quite much. And do not say you don't have time for that. You can create time for that. It is one of the top priorities to keep sanity in the world as it is now.
I love that. I'm a big nature person, and you're reminding me it's cold where I am, but still important to get outside. So very good. Cobra, if you have a few more minutes, I'd like to ask you for more questions specifically related to the divine feminine energy. And
yes.
Okay, great. How can people bring the divine feminine goddess energy into their lives?
The first thing is just to develop inner personal connection with the goddess energy. There are many ways to do that. I have published many of them on my blog. People have their own way. to connect with the goddess. And if you search, you will find.
Okay. Okay. Will it have an effect on mass consciousness if light workers start doing this on an individual and regular basis?
Yes, of course, that would have an effect on mass consciousness. But what has been observed by the light forces is that not enough people are doing that connection, and not enough people are making that effort to create that connection.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. It can be a challenge. But it is very important, and I think just acknowledging, mindfully, like you said, calling in the goddess, can be very powerful, and this is for men also. So I think because it feels like once you embody, I know with my experience, once you embody the goddess energy, you do suddenly feel, and it's interesting. It's a combination of gentle, loving kindness, but very powerful at the same time, which is that energy that is so needed on this planet. So, would you agree with that?
I would agree completely.
Absolutely. Let me speak a little bit about the Sisterhood of the Rose groups, or can you speak actually about the importance of creating and sustaining these groups, especially at this time in our history? Many groups are experiencing challenges like division or lack of attendance. How can we grow our groups and keep them harmonious and active?
Okay, the very word sisterhood implies that there are people, especially women, are sisters to each other, and that means transcending old belief systems and patterns that women have towards each other. So they need to start behaving to each other as sisters and not as competitors, and this will solve one half of the problem. The other half of the problem would be solved when there is enough goddess energy present in a group, that the group will become a magnetic vortex that will draw other people to it. So it's a matter of making a conscious decision, everybody who is involved in those groups, to actively embody sisterhood principle in daily life, and then bring goddess energy into the group through meditation and other practices that were given through Michael Block and through other sources.
Do you feel the members have to understand all of these principles and be not super knowledgeable about what's going on, or can they simply come in with an open heart and a sisterhood mentality?
If they come with open heart and embody those principles in their actions, that is a good start. It's a very good start.
Okay. Because, not everybody understands a lot of things that we were talking about, or exactly what's going on the planet. And a lot of, especially a lot of light workers, they don't want to talk about, the dark side of things. And so I just wondered if we could bring in women or men who are really just wanting to make a difference. They may not even understand why, but they just want to make a difference and be part.
Yes, that's the basis. That's the basis.
Okay, good. Can creating a virtual group have an impact too?
It can have, but I would say many, 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 many times less.
Okay.
Like, we are on the physical plane, and physical action is very important. A virtual group will stay on the mental plane. It will not affect the physical plane so much. And this is one of the tricks of the dark forces. They have created a mental network. I mean, the internet was created by the light ones, but the dark forces have misused internet to keep people completely enmeshed into the world of ideas, in the world of artificial social networking, which has nothing to do with our physical lives. And the virtual groups have very little effect on the planetary situation.
Really? So it might not even be worth our time, or it may even have a negative impact?
It would not have a negative impact, but you could use that energy much more effectively by creating even a small physical group.
Okay. How can the Sisterhood of the Rose groups connect with each other energetically, across national borders and language barriers, so that we can support light on this planet in the most unified way?
You can create group meditations. You can interact with each other, even electronically when that is needed. You can have national meetings. You can have international meetings. You can have all kinds of connections.
Okay. Okay. Um, can we connect with each other in the etheric? I'm sure. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, through meditation, you can connect with anybody.
Right. So when we do our goddess vortexes, does that connect with other goddess vortexes that other groups are doing?
Yes, especially if it's done at the same moment, it's very powerful. It can actually assist the energy grid very much.
Okay. And it is important each time to do the vortex. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you said that because in my group sometimes we're like, oh, do we have to do that? I'm tired. So I will stress the importance of that.
Okay, I would like to say sometimes people are tired and don't want to do something, but they start and something is just a blockage that needs to be overcome. Because when you really do something that's quite important, when you overcome that blockage, you will have amazing results. And there are people who are complaining that this meditation is taking time too late at 1 a.m. in the morning for
Mhm.
some people. But I would say if they were able to wait for the New Year's Eve for the midnight, they can easily wait 1 hour longer for the event that can determine the timeline of their future. I think it's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mentioned it to a friend of mine on the East Coast, and she was kind of like, well, it is kind of late, and maybe I'll do something else that weekend instead. And I was like, no, you need to do it at this time. So we definitely want to encourage as many people as possible
And
to
it's
do.
on the weekend. It's Sunday. It's Sunday from Saturday to Sunday, so it's not a working day next day. It should not be a
Absolutely. And really it's what, 15 or 20 minutes. So could be the most important 15 or 20 minutes of your life.
yes, yes.
Absolutely. One before we part, I have one last question for you. Do you have any last words of encouragement for the old timers? That is, these light workers who've been holding the light and meditating for so long, some of them 30 years in some cases, that are losing hope. What can you say to those light workers, those veteran light workers, as well as, some of the more new ones?
What I would say that this year, 2020, is actually bringing hope. We have gone through a very long period of intense war, which has drained our resources. But this year is actually bringing fresh cosmic galactic energy that some people can already feel. And if you connect with that energy, you will definitely experience it. And our activation will magnify that energy and bring it closer. And then everything we do throughout the year would bring it even closer. So this is the end of the long wait, energetically speaking.
Well, people are hoping for the event in 2020, so let's work toward that. Absolutely. So Cobra, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Okay, I would just encourage everybody to join us at the exact moment of our activation and inform those who you feel are ready for this. You can use your social media, you can use your electronic devices to spread the word and the word of mouth as well. This might be one of the most impactful things we have ever done. Thank you very much and victory of the light.
Victory of the light, and Goddess wants the Age of Aquarius. In the Age of Aquarius, it will be. So, thank you very much, Cobra.